Okay, so before we start, I want to take a moment to introduce Miss Laurie Empire. Um, she is the president of BYLP, and we have partnered up with this program for the last 3 years, 4 years now. Um, BYLP has some really amazing opportunities for young people and does not only acknowledge children, but it's child centric, Black child centric. Um, and she provides within BYLP amazing resources, specifically with our Black Girls Support Network, our Black Parent Support Network, our Black Boys Support Network. And BYLP G.O.A.T is a part of that program. So I am so happy that you guys are here today. G.O.A.T is a passion project that started when my daughters were not being handled as well as they could have been handled by their school counselors, especially as high impact, high performing students. And when we would go and meet with Lorene and the BYLP crew, because pre-COVID, we had lunch every third Saturday, we found out that it was not an isolated incident. And I was blessed to happen to have the skill set to offset the deficiencies that were happening in our schools. And through a casual conversation, G.O.A.T was born. I would like to introduce Michaela Shaw. I made her. This is my baby, y'all. Michaela was one of our first graduates from G.O.A.T, and I will let her tell you a little bit more about herself.
My name is Michaela. I'm a current second year going on third year at UC Berkeley. I currently just got the K through 12 coordinator position at the Black Community Retention Org. So I'll be continuing a similar work in the Bay Area on top of G.O.A.T. My studies are African American studies with a race and law minor that I hope to finish this summer or next summer, and a possible art practice double major.
Michaela has been functioning and doing a great job in really taking a hands-on mentorship role and a hands-on position with G.O.A.T, because for those of you who don't know, I had a baby last year and there was some bed rest involved. So she really did pick up the mantle, and she knows her stuff. She's been in training for this since she was in the 10th grade. So it's been a really good minute. So what is G.O.A.T? G.O.A.T is goals, organizations, applications, and transcripts. Goals, organization, application, and transcripts. The reason that G.O.A.T is so critical is because a lot of times our schools and our counselors will tell our children, this is where you apply, but they don't tell you how to apply. They don't tell you how to maximize your chances in applying. They don't tell you the strategies and the tools and the skill sets to maximize your ability to receive scholarships, your ability to receive internships. And all of these things are learned skill sets, in addition to ensuring that you have the academics in advance whenever possible, which is why starting this program as young as possible is a great thing, can put you in a really, really competitive position, because we don't want our children to go to college where the school they get accepted to is the one they have to go to. We want them to be able to choose any school that they want. We want, if a school sends a really horrible financial aid offer, to say, I have another 60 offers, this is not going to work, and confidently be able to walk away, or let them bring what they bring to the table. And they do bring things to the table when you can say that with confidence and you have the proof behind you. So that is a huge part of why we have that, because the goal isn't just to get in college. The goal is to get into college and be at as minimal debt as possible. Zero debt is the goal. Minimal debt is idea. But what we definitely don't want is these kids coming out of school, graduating 100, 200, $300,000 in debt. And that sounds almost irrational until you think that some of the big name schools, whether PWI or HBCU, you're looking at $50,000 a year over the course of 4 to 5 years. So 200,000 in debt is not some big abstract number. It is a number that happens, and it happens on a regular basis. And that is what we do not want. So let me open my screen, and we'll go over this in detail, because I wrote it down so that I can attempt to get us out of here on time, because I'm notorious for going over time. So BYLP, and by the way, I am an interactive type of person. If you have a question, just unmute yourself and ask the question. Please feel free. What is G.O.A.T? We just kind of went over that, but please understand that G.O.A.T is a holistic program built with the whole student in mind. Okay. It is not a program where our aim is to beat who your children are out of them, or to shame who your children are out of them. It is not a program that is meant to discourage or break down. Our one goal is to uplift, refine, and improve, because your children are already perfectly made. They just need a little bit of refinement, like we all do, because that's part of life is growth and refinement. So our goal is to give children the tool sets for life, the tool sets for interviewing, the tool sets for how to interview without having an interview, which means you have a solid portfolio that speaks for you. What does G.O.A.T encourage children to do? We encourage children to find their voice and learn to amplify it. We encourage children to find their leadership style. We encourage children to gain the organizational tools and skill sets that they need to be successful in college. We encourage them to discuss goal setting and create life maps so that they can see possible and potential outcomes to where they want to go. We teach students and parents how to monitor student schedules and their transcripts, so that when they get to senior year, you can be sure that they have what they need. Because one of the common misconceptions that high school counselors that maybe don't hold the same standards for your children as you do is a lot of them are trying to get your child to graduation. In other words, junior college, community college eligible. It is not necessarily in their job description to have your student university ready, or university ready and in the position for scholarships. And there is a big difference between you being university ready and graduation prepared. And there is a big difference between being university accepted and being high value scholarship potential. We want to make sure that your student is ready to go into the college setting, but we want to make sure that they are also prepared for the process that happens in senior year. What else do we do and encourage at G.O.A.T? We expose children and families to significant historical and cultural information, as well as current events that will and may impact them in their life. We prepare them to be admitted to top level universities. Why do we aim for top level universities? Because if our goal is a top level university and we fall short, we still have some really, really amazing options. But if we're shooting for the bare minimum and something doesn't go to plan, then you're not left with very many options. We want students to understand what courses and extracurricular activities, what do they really want to see, especially in this age of being test optional, which is actually very good for Black students. It is more important to know how to work what you do, meaning how do I take what I do and make it shine. We want you to understand traditional and non-traditional academic options for high school and for middle school. In case something is not working for your child, we want to be able to pivot and make a change. We want to help you and your child have a network of support, which is why, in addition to G.O.A.T, like I mentioned, there is the Black Girl Support Network, the Black Boy Support Network, the Black Parent Support Network, the Black Ally Support Network, Black Allies and Abolitionist Support Network. There is advocacy provided by Bylp. We really want your child and you to be supported and to know that you have support systems, and not only to know that you have them, to know how to utilize your local support systems in addition to the support systems that we offer. Soji, hush. We will also do resource assessments so that you can understand available and prospective resources that you may have. The goals, we support children in acquiring personal organization skills, in attaining a solutions-oriented mindset, attaining goal setting and goal attainment strategies, to refine their public speaking and interviewing skills. And we support them in learning how to not only become a self and personal advocate, but a community advocate as well. That was a mouthful, so I'm going to stop my share for a second. Does anyone have any questions about what we do or what our goals are before we go into how we do this, how we accomplish this, and what the expectations are for you and your children? Everybody good? Usually someone has a question right about here. Anything in the chat? Let's see.
Well, I asked about homeschoolers, but Michaela answered, because I homeschool and my son's in the 10th grade, and I'm a little anxious because he keeps saying he doesn't want to go to college, or he wants to go to college, but schooling is a challenge at the moment. And I would like for him to be prepared and have the option if he does choose to go eventually, you know? So.
Well, this is absolutely, like, both of my daughters, whom it was the inspiration for creating the program, they are homeschooled and have been since the 2nd grade. So it's definitely homeschool applicable. With homeschool, there's actually more ways to flex muscles and more ways to make your student a high caliber student. And when I say high caliber, do let me clarify, I don't mean that any children are not high caliber. I mean, just like in athletics, when a coach is looking for certain things to recruit, schools are looking for specific things. And by high caliber, I mean on paper. And as much as I hate it, what matters is how they look on paper. You know, we've had situations with our students at in-person college fairs where the student will turn in the application and the recruiter is like, no. And then we give them the portfolio and we're like, you need to look again. And they're like, would you like a full ride? Yes, please. And thank you. Because it matters about how you put yourself on paper. And if you're limiting yourself to just that application, that's that. So definitely homeschoolers can work this program at the highest possible standard because there is so much more flexibility in being a homeschooler. So yes, are you in my homeschool group?
Yes, that's where I saw you. I've been in your homeschool group for like 4 years now, the unschoolers group.
Yes. Okay. Well, then great. Yeah, you're good. So it's definitely for homeschoolers as well. Are there any and as a homeschooler, it depends on the school how you get your student into college. And it depends on how you homeschool. If you homeschool under an umbrella school where that school is WASC accredited and it is giving you your transcripts, then you apply just like any other student. If you are homeschooling independently, where your homeschool is not WASC accredited, then some schools will let you apply like anybody else, specifically on the Black Common app and some of the other apps. But for your larger schools, you usually have to do a portfolio review, which means you're creating a portfolio. Another easy way to do it, or a simplified way to do it, is around the 9th or 10th grade. Really start investing in JC classes for those core classes, because then those things won't be questioned or challenged, and you won't have to do things like take the SAT subject matter test because you have the transferable units done already. But we go that into that in great detail in the program. So yes. Does anyone have any other questions before we move forward? Okay, great. Let me go back to share my screen. So additionally, we will be focusing on creating a portfolio, which the students will probably tell you is the most tedious aspect of this program, creating the portfolio and the curriculum vitae. I will let Michaela speak on the impact of that in a moment. But we want to come up with a debt-free, limited debt college plan for them. We want them to have exposure to local, state, national, international, and HBC universities, all as viable college options. A lot of programs push only one or the other, and we push what is best for each child as individual. Because our goal is to have children who become adults who don't have to recover from childhood. And we want children to have a college experience that fits them, and a college experience that doesn't have them become young adults who are impoverished because of student loan debt. So that's the goal. One other thing that we do encourage is a work-life balance with self-care, mental care, and academic success in balance. We teach and apply mindfulness, centering, and personal regulation techniques. And we really do encourage community service projects, and we encourage them leading and creating their own service opportunities, because that is a really amazing way to make yourself stand out in your application. Michaela, would you like to share for a second about your curriculum vitae and your portfolio, and not only how it helped you during your admissions process, but how it's helped you since once you went to college?
So my curriculum vitae got me into,
Yep, just a little bit low.
I want to say, the initial 60 schools via HBCU fairs. You're muted, Mom. Oh, so it got me into like 60 HBCUs, which were the initial colleges through HBCU fairs, because that the majority of those fairs, they give you like time to look at you, as well as like look through your portfolio. Even if it's not an HBCU fair, like the Black College Expo is still good to go, because usually there are admission counselors, at least people who work within the Office of Admissions, seeing your portfolio and looking through your portfolio. They can't guarantee you a spot with most PWIs on the spot, but they can look at you, and then 9 times out of 10 they remember your name, or they give you their card. And In college, I've turned my portfolio, my freaking tie into a resume numerous times. I would say like the hardest. PW has predominantly white institutions, such as Berkeley, Harvard, Yale. Yes. So like, yeah, it's just predominantly white institutions. Um, the only problem that I've had with my curriculum vitae is just deciding on what goes on which resume. Honestly, it's not really hard. It just what goes on which resume, which I feel like that comes with practice and applying to jobs and such. Um, but yeah, but portfolios are good, seeing as though, um, at least in my process now with me declaring, a lot of majors require portfolios of their students, such as the art practice one, as well as some like thesis, which is just low-key portfolio work. Like, oh, how many papers did you write on this topic? It's a portfolio. Um, it's just they just call it thesis. But yeah, the portfolio was really helpful. I wouldn't say the portfolio was tedious. I would say collecting volunteer hours were tedious, and getting everything signed was tedious. But in my experience, it's easier to get hired for work study jobs if they prefer they prefer volunteer hours, at least the ones I work personally. But yeah.
You also had a lot of volunteer hours. You ended up with what, 2,800 hours?
I just didn't like getting them signed.
Yeah, I know. So that is one of the reasons we really focus on the portfolio, because she's not redoing the portfolio every time. She's just adapting it. The essays that she wrote in high school are still the essays that she can use now. Yes, they're elevated, they're more refined, but the basis of who she is hasn't changed that much. So she can adapt it and all of those things. It also keeps all of her letters of recommendation together so that when she needs new letters of recommendation, she can say, oh, this one applies. Laureen already wrote it. Let me message Laureen, and Laureen will update it for this here application. So it kind of keeps everything in order, because we want an overabundance of letters of recommendation, not a minimal. Because some people say, well, the recommendation is 3 to 5. And it is 3 to 5. But let's say that, you have a student who is applying for an internship at Disney. A letter of recommendation from Laureen from BYLP is really, really great. But if you also have a letter of recommendation from the CFO from Google and the, head of the Sims division for EA and the head of X, Y, and Z for PlayStation, which one applies to that graphic industry? Those do. Whereas if you're applying to a position like Michaela is with the Resource Center, Laureen's is more applicable. So by having more letters, you can then choose from what is applicable to what you are applying for, or the school, that the university that you're applying for. Go. Your father's home. Go. So everything we do is going to, at face value, sound extra. But it is extra because as Black youth, our children cannot do the bare minimum. Our children cannot be the bare minimum. They cannot have the bare minimum and have the same outcome. So we give them the tools and the skill sets to maximize everything that they do and turn it into the biggest opportunity that is an investment for as long as possible. One of the really big components of our program, like Michaela noted in the chat, is writing and learning how to write, to revise, to upgrade, to edit your essays and your work. It's really essential. Do you have anything to add to that, Michaela?
I would say just because, especially when you get into your like same major, like once you decide a major, I've low key written like rewritten like the same 3 essays, and that's just happened because like all of my professors are obsessed with one topic, so I haven't really like completely redone an essay
Sure.
in a while. So it's a necessary skill.
Yeah, learning to adapt and rewrite. And that is especially significant during when you are looking for scholarships. 9 times out of 10, there is 3 to 5 essay prompts. And almost all of your essays, once you have those 3 to 5 done, it covers pretty much everything. Zachariah?
So for the letter of recommendations, like in our portfolio, like who's gonna be like, so I'm trying to figure out like how does that work? Are we gonna like have different people try to like recommend us or like
We're going to go through that super thoroughly when we jump into the programming, but we are going to discuss who is a good recommender. We're going to discuss how you should request a letter of recommendation. We're going to suggest the people who you should be asking or not asking for letters of recommendations. We're going to tell you that a lot of people are going to ask you to pre-write your letters. Do not send everybody the same pre-written letter, or you will have the same letter written by 10 people. And those letters will basically be discounted because they will all sound the same. Yeah, self-plagiarizing is a thing. So you definitely, that's definitely something that we're going to go over with you. We're not just going to throw you in the wind. But as an example, Zachariah, on this call, you have 3 people who can write you a letter right now. I can write you a letter. Michaela can write you a letter. Miss Lauren can write you a letter. So it's again about learning to see your resources and use them. And it's learning about how to do and have the etiquette when you are requesting them to make sure that you are allowing your recommender to have the optimal amount of time to do your letter and to do it well. Because if you ask somebody a day or 2, or in my case, even a week, because I work with so many young people, if you ask me a week or 2 in advance, I may or may not get to it. And it may or may not be as good as it would be if you gave me a lot of time to really think about what I'm going to write. Because while I may say, hey, can you throw together a rough draft? I rewrite those rough drafts. Some people do not, and they just like change their name and sign it. So it just depends on the person you're working with. A good indicator that I really don't rock with you is if I sign your letter of recommendation and it's not that changed. So you always want to give me time because I really enjoy writing and personalizing the letters of recommendation, because for me, it's an honor to be asked to do so. And it's an honor to be trusted to do so. So I almost always do that. I can only think of one occasion where I did not. And that person almost didn't get the letter from me. So hopefully, does that answer your question fully? Or do you need a follow-up question?
that answers my question.
Good. Anyone else have a question? All right. So let's go back to the share screen. So what is our standard? I want you guys to know that when we say standard, this means this is what we would like our children to have at minimum. And the keyword is minimum. And the reason the keyword is minimum is because these are the things that are going to get them the money to go to college and to be able to choose where they want to go. Now, if your child is below this minimum, does not mean we do not want your child. It does not mean we will not work with your child, but it does mean that me or somebody from my team will sit down with you and your child and look at additional support opportunities or additional intervention opportunities or additional educational pathway opportunities so as to maximize your child's opportunity. Because again, this is about growth, not perfection. We're all perfectly imperfect. So we want our kids to have a 3.0 GPA. If your child is below a 3.0 GPA and wants to go to college, that is a really significant red flag. And let me pause the share so I can talk about that for a moment. Why is that a red flag? I had a baby come to me this week and tell me, Miss Cherina, I'm a junior. I'm going to be a senior next year. And I want to go to Stanford, to Howard, to Spelman, or to UCLA. And I'm like, great. What's your GPA? She says 3.1. That is a great GPA. It is a good GPA, but it's not a GPA that will get you into any of those universities. Is there a long shot chance that you will get in? Yes. If you have SAT or ACT scores that are immaculate, if you have something that is super extraordinary, there is a chance. But is it likely? No. Those would all be classified as super reach schools because a 3.0 GPA is no longer a GPA that is competitive in terms of certain schools. It's unfortunate, but it is because GPAs are in fact inflated. Do I agree with GPAs being inflated? No. But my job is to teach y'all how to play the game. Because if we're playing by what we feel like it should be, and everybody is playing the game, that puts our children at a deficit, right? So the goal then is to look at what can we do quickly to improve this child's GPA? And who can we reach out to that may have a decision-making standard? Now, in some cases, there really isn't anything we can do. In some cases, there is, but it's important to know that. So with this child, what did we do? We put them in contact with a couple people so they can make phone calls. We told them that for those schools, on-campus visits are probably really important because those things that matter to admissions and records. But we also told them that they need another group of safe schools because the caliber of the schools they're looking for is not aligned with the average standard, because the average standard of those schools are a 3.9 GPA, ACT scores of 34. And, you know, in terms of the individual course loads, which will go up for, she had the minimum standard for all of those schools, but keep in mind the minimum standard is not the average admitted standard. So when you think about minimum standard for going to university, think about what will be required for me to let an athlete in. So your tops, your baller, who they want to come play on that team, that is what that person has to have. Unless your child is that person, they probably have to have a substantially higher portfolio than that. Zachariah, was your hand up again, or is that the same hand?
I raised my hand again.
What's up?
So what do you mean by the GPAs are inflated?
So it used to be that an A meant absolutely stellar and excellent, and a B meant really great and above average, and a C meant quite average. A D meant below average, and an F meant failure. Now, with the way grades are, they're inflated, which means when children get a B now, for some schools, that is the end of the road, because there are some universities where the average admissions GPA is literally above a 4.0. And that's not fair, nor is it right, but it is the current situation in college admissions. So
That being said, the majority of the schools that you're applying, they won't accept like inflated GPAs, but they inflate their GPAs once you get into the school.
well, they
So, like,
try not to accept inflated GPAs.
Yes,
But-
inflated GPAs for a lot of universities are a lot of things you just need to work towards. such as Harvard inflates. That's why Berkeley is a big deal because we're #1 public school without inflated. In fact, Berkeley deflates GPAs, which is why if you're ever on Instagram, there are people just excited about a C because until you have pulled 10 all-nighters for a C and everyone else in the class got the same grade you did, because they don't believe, a majority of professors here don't believe in curves.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. And that's a good thing to look at. If you look at the average GPA of the graduates of the university, that'll let you that will let you know how that university feels about inflation.
I have legit had advisors tell me, I mean, you don't have to try your best in this class if you mentally can't do it, because Berkeley really does and like push mental health. Because you just need a minimum of a 3.0 to 2.5 for grad school because you're getting a Berkeley degree.
But that, yeah, it's a thing. Because that's a university that speaks for itself. So that's what we mean by inflated GPAs. In high school, inflated GPAs have become a real problem. As a teacher, it is not uncommon for a kid to receive a grade that is completely earned and have parents come in and yell and scream and yell at principals and vice principals, and they will make you change the grade. It is not an uncommon thing. That's why so many teachers are leaving the profession. If you have a class where if you look at average by definition, the average grade in a class should be what? A C, because it's average. When you see schools and the average grade is a B+, an A-, that tells you that it's inflated because everybody cannot be the very, very top. So that was a really amazing question. No one has ever asked this question as long as I've been doing this work, privately or for G.O.A.T. So that was a really amazing question. Any other questions before we move on? Okay, great. So what are we looking for in terms of grades? We want a minimum of 2 years laboratory science. Keyword there is laboratory. We want a minimum of 4 years of mathematics, including Algebra 2 or Integrated Math 3. The high school standard for graduation for most school districts is 4 years of math, including Algebra 1, which means you can take 2 years of pre-algebra and a year of calculator business math and Algebra 1 and graduate. Yes, you can graduate. No, you will not get into a top school. And no, you will not. It's highly unlikely to get a large full ride if your highest math is algebra. Okay, so that is very important to note. We want 4 years of CP, AP, or honors English. You want, if at all possible, junior college or community college English credit instead of AP, CP, or honors. Why is this? AP honors is dependent on a single test. Whereas the JC class, whatever your grade is in that class, in that course, is the grade that you will get plus a grade point level. So if you get a B, so the things that are similar in your JC and your AP class is a B is an A C is a B. The difference is AP classes are notorious for busy work, 1. 2, you have to pass a test. 3, passing that test differs by school. Some schools will only take a 5. Some schools will take a 4. Some schools will take a 3. It depends on the school and it varies by year because their policies constantly change. Whereas a JC class, 9 times out of 10, the JC already has an agreement with certain institution that these credits will transfer over. especially if you intend to stay within your state. And almost always your English 1, your English 1B, your English 1C, those almost always transfer over. The other benefit that makes a college course more valuable than an AP course is 1 semester of a college course is 1 year in high school. So our Michaela's freshman year, during the summer, she did did you do intro to college English, or was that Sydney? No, that was Sydney. So Michaela's freshman year, she did English
We
1.
both did it.
Huh?
We both did it.
So she did in the spring, intro to college English, the spring of her freshman year. And then the first semester of the summer, she took English 1A. The second summer session, she took English 1B, which gave her 3 years worth of English. All 2 of the 3 years were transferable, but that covered 4 years of college or of high school English, because the intro to college English was 5 credits at the university, which is 16.3 credits at the high school level, which meant that she only had 3 credits, 4 credits of college or of high school English left, but she had that because she took English her first semester in high school as a standard. So she was completely done with all of her high school English and all of her college English by the end of her freshman year of high school. So that is why we really push the community college classes as opposed to AP, because those are guaranteed. Even if you get a C-, they're still guaranteed accepted transferable. And at most schools, if you're transferring credits as a freshman, they do not affect your college GPA. So for example, Michaela has the classes that she took in high school. Berkeley is not making her retake them. Those subjects, that English is counted as done, but that does not affect her Berkeley GPA. The other thing that we suggest is at minimum 3 years of foreign language. For high school graduation, the minimum requirement is 1 year of foreign language. For most colleges, the minimum requirements is 2 years of foreign language, which is why we suggest 3, preferably 4 solid years of foreign language, because foreign language is one of the things that really does make students stand out. We want them in dual enrollment by their junior year, which means they are taking at least 1 college class. And we prefer that 1 dual enrollment class, if you only choose 1, is a foundational English class, because the most important factor in success in college is the ability to write. Almost everything else, there are tools for that, but either you can write or you cannot. Does anyone have any questions about the academic suggestions or the academic course load that we want our kids to be taking to optimize their success? Let me stop my share so I can check for hands. Okay, great. So what we ask, so we can make sure that we're keeping track of kids, is that they are giving us their midterm progress report and their semester grades at the end of the year. We don't want to look up and find out that your kid is having a problem 2 days before graduation. Within BYLP, we have advocacy support. So if there's a problem and the problem is the teacher, the problem is the faculty, the problem is something else, the problem is the student needs an IEP, we can support your child through those things. And the earlier, the better. The earlier we can intervene and support and create changes, create something within the system, whatever it has to do, the better. So we want any progress reports, but at least midterm and end the semester to reports. If your child is in high school, we want to see their transcripts, not their report cards. Okay, transcripts. Why do we want to see their transcripts? Transcripts have mistakes often. Often. What is on the report card does not always get to the transcript. Sometimes you will take a CP, which is a college prep class. So if you're in the state of California, For example, our classes have CP. In order for that class to count, in order to apply to a UC or a CSU, that class has to be CP, which is classified as college prep. So if you have a transcript and it doesn't say CP by it, that's something that needs to be intervened, because we need to find out, is your school an all CP school so it doesn't have to state it? Or did somebody mess up in how they inputted your transcripts? Because these things are still largely done, even though they're automated, they're still done largely by hand. They're still approved by hand, and mistakes still happen, and they happen often. Michaela, what did we end up fixing? Like 4 or 5 times they messed up on your transcript. Sydney had a couple times where her transcript was messed up. Jalen had a time when his transcript was out of order. And we've had several kids go through this program where we look up and their transcripts are not correct. So we want your transcript so we can make sure that your child is fully getting the credit for what they are doing, and that they're getting the correct credit and the optimal credit. And the other thing is that we ask for students to complete 50 hours of community service a year. And it sounds like a lot, but it really is not. But what you will find, especially if you start young, those hours will stack up, and universities really do love children who are of service, especially when the children are making their own way. So 50 hours of community service equates to 1 hour a week. That's it.
Especially like the low-key religious schools that you don't realize that are religious schools.
Yeah, like if you apply to a Jesuit school, for example, and you have a lot of community service, they literally give out full rides just based on community service. And one of the things that we will be teaching your kids is how to count your community service. Okay. One of the biggest mistakes that students make in applying for universities is they count their community service that they report to the college the way their school counts community service. The high schools usually have limits to what they are allowed to by law count as community service, because it is either A, less than verifiable, it is B, religious, it is C, some other issue, it is D, the teacher just doesn't believe in that. We believe in maximizing what children do. So we extensively have discussions about community service, about what counts as community service, especially within the Black community, because our community is not the same as other communities. And as many of you guys know, especially if you grew up in an urban environment, the people who are doing service aren't necessarily the ones with the organizations. Sometimes it's the one who's like, hey, little man, you need help with that book. Sometimes it's the ones who are like, you know, do you need X, Y, and Z? Can I help Miss So-and-so with her lawn? Those count. When you are at church or whatever religious service you're at and you decide to help clean up, or you decide, you know, to work with the usher board, or you decide to come to these meetings and mentor our younger kids, because all of our kids, the reason I can give service hours for every single thing we do is because all of our older kids support younger kids, and that is a service. So we will really be teaching and helping you guys to really see all the things you do, because Michaela did a lot, Sydney did a lot, but the reason their service hours are so huge isn't that they did so much more than everybody else. They did more than average, but it's that they counted everything. And learning to count everything is essential. And we actually have a Google Docs form that we give to students to help them count it and give to you guys. And you guys can be on the same page, save it, and you guys can update the hours. You can do it. They can do it straight from your phone, which makes all the difference in the world, because then it turns into an easy spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet automatically converts into a PDF file, which means you can just print it and pop it in your portfolio and update it anytime you want just by clicking print. So that is a really, really big component of what we do. because our children do so much already that we don't necessarily, unless they're just not doing anything, we don't need them to do more. We need them to see the value in what they do. Any questions? Okay, cool. Last portion, and then we will be done pretty much on time. Look at God. So programming goals. Our goals and the things that we want to do, depending on what children we end up working with. College tours, whether physically or virtually, to increase exposure. We are here in California, so we do have some emphasis on California college tours. HBCU college tours and information, facts, speakers, things like that. We want our students to attend college fairs, and we really do spend time teaching them how to work the college fair, how to interview the college fair, how to make their presence seen and felt and known in the college fair. It is a skill set. We want your children and you fully supported. So we want you involved in our other BYLP support networks. We want you, to send your daughters to BGSN and your boys to BBSN. And we want you guys to know that this is, like I said, a whole person, a whole child program. This is not just about the academics, because if a child has great academics and they can't function because their head isn't right, or they don't feel supported, or they feel like they're being discounted by their schools, then your child's not going to thrive. And our goal is for your whole child to thrive, not just academically. Attend monthly meetings for G.O.A.T. The day and the time will be determined. It historically has been the third Saturday of the month, but if it is more feasible for people to do the second Saturday after our BGSN, which is our Black Girls and Black Boys Support Network, if it is better to do it after that for people's schedules, I don't mind stacking them. We also have a Black graduation celebration weekend that's coming up. 8th graders are included this year, more than likely, in our high school and college graduates. We have a Black prom this year. Our theme is Shades of Melanin Soiree, so we are excited about it. I also have quarterly parent trainings to help you in supporting your children through this process. We have FAFSA and financial aid and scholarship workshops, and we have dual enrollment workshops. So those are all of the things that we include in G.O.A.T. And this list is not comprehensive. If your child has a need, let us know, and we will do our best to meet it. If I don't have the skill sets, I probably know someone who does. And if I don't have the capacity, I will find somebody who does. So we want you to feel fully supported. So that is the crux of our program. That is what we, oh, yes, we have, yes, I'll let you tell them about that in a second, Michaela. BYLP has a candidate forum this upcoming Saturday. If you go to our Facebook page, you can find it. We would love for you to tune in. And more importantly, we want your young people to tune in and ask questions and be involved, because they are literally our future. And we want them to know that they have a voice, that the candidates owe them respect and owe them answers and owe them to hear and respond to their concerns. So that is coming up this Saturday. I will be supporting it. I will be posting it in my groups. And it's also on the BYLP page. Go ahead, Michaela.
So for this upcoming year, I'll be taking over. Well, not necessarily. Yeah, I'll be taking over as the K through 12 recruitment coordinator for the Black Recruitment and Retention Center. With that, I know all the events that are planning and that will be upcoming for the year, as well as I know how to finance the system now to get people into senior weekend, because that was a whole thing. Senior weekend was this past weekend. It was a lot, but we had like 40 Black students come visit, and live on Afro floor, which was exhausting for the people running it, but they had a lot of fun, and many students declared over the trip. Yeah.
Maureen, she's getting a taste of her own medicine for them trips, huh?
I didn't do anything. The first mistake was letting children stay with college freshmen on Cal Day.
But
that was our first mistake. And then if you don't follow the BRC now, I suggest you follow it. We just had our Ebony Gala for any of those who are excited which will become an annual event. Very similar to like the Black Prom. Well, the theme this year was Black Prom. So yeah.
So if you type in Berkeley BRRC on Instagram.
Yes. As well as the fact that majority schools have some type of coalition.
Yeah. So we're creating
and also we currently have 4 students coming to Berkeley. We have 4 students currently at Berkeley that went through G.O.A.T. I am the oldest. We have 3 students coming. 3 of them were on senior weekend. That were with G.O.A.T. this past year as well as last year. Yeah. Mom didn't know because they don't tell us anything.
They don't. We look up and we're like,
I saw them at until I saw them on Cal Day. I was like, what you doing here? But yes, also to those that are interested, there will be a welcome Black barbecue for Berkeley students. The BRC doesn't necessarily care about who comes as long as you're Black and in the community.
I'm going this year.
If you're interested of getting to know the community as well as getting up to mentors, as well as I will suggest the students look into if any students, I will get you names of, as well as there's HUBA at Berkeley, which is like career professional workshops. And I'm pretty sure they'll have like a high school coordinator this year. So yeah, lots of trips to Berkeley and USF.
Yeah. So there's a lot. So a couple of years ago, one of my goals was to create a pipeline to Berkeley for Black students here. Because we spent the first couple of years creating pipelines to HBCUs, which is really, really important. But when COVID hit, one thing I realized is we needed access to a pipeline of a high quality education close to home for those of us who are California. Because if you can imagine like COVID hitting and trying to put your baby on a plane 2,500 miles away, it's like, I don't know about that. So we now have a pipeline to Berkeley. We have a pipeline to USF, which is the University of San Francisco. We have a pipeline to Holy Names that we've been working with. We have a pipeline and people we work with really well at Spelman. We have a pipeline to Benedict College. We have a pipeline to
UMES and
University of Maryland Eastern Shore. So G.O.A.T. is really developing pipelines and personal relationships with these universities. And, we really advise students to go to these schools because these schools have proven themselves to be there for our kids and to be actively engaged and actively present, not just during the recruitment, but after they're there. So that's important. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everybody. So a couple of questions. I have a middle schooler, and I'm noticing like the list of things, the requirements and that sort of thing are all for high schoolers. I thought I saw on your list that that the program supports middle schoolers as well. Is that?
In middle school, you guys out. In middle school, out of here. And in middle school, the exact classes are less important. What is important is, if at all possible, if they are capable of taking algebra in the 8th grade, do that. If not, you want to have them in a solid pre-algebra so they can take algebra 2nd grade or 9th freshman year, and then go into geometry sophomore year. Algebra 2 junior year, and trig or calculus senior year. That's kind of the goal. Again, if you take a JC class, that shrinks everything up. A good statistics class fits perfectly in there, and it counts towards your mathematical reasoning skills requirement for most universities, even though statistics is difficult. But it's worth it, especially if you find a good teacher. So we do support 8th graders in this program. It's a little bit more custom because they're younger. They just need a little extra help. It's less about what classes they are taking and giving them those skill sets very, very early on, so that when they get to high school, they already have the organization that we're teaching the 9th and 10th graders now. They already have, a habit of keeping a community service log. They already have a curriculum vitae or resume, so that they're just refining it. Because the first year you're in this program, unless you are a rising senior, the first year in this program, it's about getting everything together. The second year, it's about refining.
Okay.
If you are a junior, and which as a rising senior, the program is a little bit more intense because we have to get all of this in by November. Bless you. If you are a rising junior, or excuse me, if you're a rising senior, which means you're a junior right now and you will be a senior, what we want to do is have everything completed by November. A lot of state schools, specifically PWIs, do not have rolling admissions. So in the state of California, UC and CSU applications are due November 31st and December 1st, respectively. And, if buts or issues. Occasionally, if there are some of the UCs that have extra slots, they will extend it by a week or two, but it is rare, especially in the last 2 years, because the last 2 years have been the most 2 competitive classes in the last decade. Like children who have well above a 4.0 are getting waitlisted and denied for schools right now. For HBCUs, the deadlines tend to be rolling. However, your admissions odds go up with early enrollment or early decision applications. Why? They either say yes, or they say, we're holding you and moving you to regular decision. When they say that, they usually say, this is what we were concerned about. Can you turn in these supporting documents? Whereas if you apply regular decision, there is no time for them to give you another opportunity to improve your application. Spelman does this all the time. It is a very, very, very common thing for Spelman. It's very common for Morehouse also, and Morgan State. So by applying early decision, you give yourself extra opportunity. Another thing that comes with applying early decision is high level merit scholarships tend to come with early decision. So like, for example, for the UC system, there is no way to apply early decision, quote unquote, but they do have early decision students. So for example, most students were just accepted, what was that, March 26th? Something like that. Sydney was accepted at the end of January. And she was accepted at the end of January because they wanted her to apply for the Chancellor Scholarship, which again, it's essentially an early admit, so they give you time to apply for these high caliber things. So when your student applies early admit, they then have the opportunity to get to be asked to apply for these things. It was like Michaela when she was early admit to UOP. Then they're like, hey, they have this really big scholarship. It's called the Meredith Merit Scholarship. Can you please apply for it? She's applying for that while other kids are still waiting to see if they've even gotten into the program. So it's always beneficial to apply early admit if you want full money. The later you apply, the less money is available. And this is especially true at HBCUs. Not to say there's no money available, not to say it's impossible, but every year there's a certain pool of funds, right? And the earlier you get swimming in that pool, the more of it you can get. So hopefully that answers your question. So 7th and 8th graders, we're going to be working on the same things. We're just going to slightly bring it down a little bit, make it a little bit more simple because they have time to refine it. But it is the same skill sets. And for kids who may be looking to go to competitive high schools or to do dual enrollment in their 8th grade year or their 9th grade year, this will definitely help them with the writing, with the organization components, with all of those things. And if you're starting this program in the 7th or 8th grade, there is no reason that your child shouldn't be able to be taking junior community college classes by the 8th or 9th grade. You just have to be selective in the classes and utilize Rate My Professor to make sure it's a professor that is tolerable and will work well with young people. And the JC class is not always about the academic intensity of the class. So for example, there's a class at the JC that's literally called walking. You walk and you get credit. It's a 1-unit class, which means it's a 3-unit high school class, which means it's basically almost a semester, but you're only committing like 3 hours a week. Why do it? 1, it inflates your GPA and it elevates your GPA. 2, you get your PE credit. 3, your child has to be accountable to this professor and get used to the collegiate timeline, get used to responding. How did you feel about this walk? How was this uphill incline? So they get used to working with the college professor, the college, and having that college experience of being more independent, of not being followed in the same way that you're followed in high school and things like that. So even the walking classes are beneficial. And like Sydney took walking, she took yoga, she took walking 2, she took speed walking, she took all of the PE classes. And it was really just because her as a homeschooler, she was used to primarily answering to me. And I needed to get her in the habit of being more accountable than she was to me because, I'm mom. So it's like, this is due Tuesday. Tuesday can be Thursday. So after doing that for, a semester or a year, then we moved into the English one. No, we didn't go to English one. We went to the fundamentals, English for college fundamentals. And that was the only class she took. She took that and a walking class. And then after she had a firm grasp of writing for college, then I let her take all the classes. And like I said, Friday, she's getting ready to graduate with her degree in entrepreneurship. So we're really, really proud of her. So we'll be doing that. We'll be going over their college essays. We'll be helping them learn how to write them, how to do them, how to be vulnerable in them, because vulnerability is important. One of the biggest mistakes students make is not being vulnerable in their college essays. Why is that important? There are so many kids with perfect GPAs. If you have a perfect GPA and you're already perfect, why do you need us? The schools are going to look at it like, we asked you what your biggest challenge was, and you basically said you don't have any. Your biggest challenge is that you're pretty. You can go somewhere with that. We need somebody who's going to be honest and authentic. So if you tell them, listen, this was my struggle. This was really, really, really difficult. This is how I overcame it. And this is why I'm stronger because of it. Not only were you honest, not only were you vulnerable, but you showed them that, listen, I made boss moves. I turned this around. I elevated myself in the process. And this is who I am now because of it. And doing that is a big thing. But the number one mistake specifically Black students make is not being vulnerable. And that is because culturally we grew up in a space where, you can't be okay. You have to be the best, and you have to be better than the best. And culturally that goes kind of against being vulnerable. But when it comes to college admissions, vulnerability needs to be a part of the process, because they can see your perfection on your application. They can see your perfection on your transcripts. The reason they're asking for an essay is because they want to know something that's not there.
What other grades do we have on the call? So, because I'm free from May 18th until June 16th to go deep into personal essays and
We'll
edit
set that
personal
up for May.
essays. Huh?
I said, we'll do that in May.
No, I'm just trying to figure that out now because they have to write it now because I start classes on the 18th.
We have, there's multiple grades, and I know some people had to log on, get off because it's late in their time zone. So, yeah, but we'll definitely get an idea of all of that. Does anyone else have any other, Jada's in the 11th. So Jada's a rising senior. I can't believe my Jada is a rising senior. Sorry, that just took me back. Like Jada's gonna be a senior. Janice is in the 10th grade, so she'll be a junior next year, and Zachariah is in the 10th grade. So Michaela, what I might do is partner you with Jada.
Yeah,
Maria, you good with that?
I'll talk to Shanice if she has the bandwidth to come on team this summer.
Okay.
She's comparative literature.
Yeah, she is. Janice is a really dope writer. So, yeah, all of the kids will be partnered. The younger kids will be partnered with an older student in the program. The older students are directly mentored by college students. The seniors, the rising juniors and seniors are directly mentored by a college student. That way everybody has a continued in a baseline of support. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns? Well, thank you so much for coming. This meeting is recorded, so it will, we will be posting it in the groups and on the page so that anyone who missed it can catch up. We will be jumping right in May. So keep an eye out for that. I sent a link up here. Let me repost it. This is a link to the Google Classroom. You can go ahead and join the Google Classroom. A lot of updates are in there. A lot of information is already in the Google Classroom because we're not reinventing the Google Classroom. But if you join the Google Classroom and if anything comes up, if any, virtual tours or other things, we post a lot of the stuff in there. When the children need help with certain things, if they have certain assignments for upcoming G.O.A.T meetings, all of that goes into the Google Classroom. So that is posted. Or you
Bring a friend, you get a surprise.
Yeah, bring a friend, you get a surprise. And you can also write down the number 44GX526. 44GX526. And if you don't have the link because you are watching this call afterwards, if you just go to Google Classrooms, it will say, what is your access code? If you type in 44 lowercase GX526, that will also give you access to the Google Classroom. Also, do not have your children log in to the Google Classroom with their school email, because the firewall often stops it from gaining access. That is also true for organizational emails. So like I have a bylp.org email. It's not under that because of the firewall. So have and make sure they set up a basic email account if they don't yet have one. I suggest first name, last name @gmail.com or the first name, last name @gmail.com because it's an email that can stay with them forever and they can use that email only for G.O.A.T and for college. That way, when they go to even as young as the 8th grade, they can, when they go to an HBCU fair, whether it's in person or virtual, they'll fill out the little forms and they'll start getting interest mail and things like that. But you want one email just for college, because by the time they are seniors, the amount of emails that come for college is ridiculous. We are getting several hundred emails a day, and you don't want that in your regular email. All right, well, wonderful. Feel free to email me at any time. GOAT at bylp.org, GOAT at bylp.org. And with that, we are finished.